Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock, and I'll tell you why the Mavs scandal is even worse than the Donald Sterling scandal.
And I'm Colin Cowherd, and I'll tell you why everybody needs to just stop worrying about the Warriors. Speak for yourself on a Thursday starts now.
They getting LeBron? What? What's happening?
I'm going to shake the world today. It's our last show of the weekend. We're going to make it happen.
All right, hello and welcome. We're joined today by Fox NBA analyst Jim Jackson and NBA champion Eddie House. Let's start in Dallas, where the Mavericks are still reeling from Sports Illustrated's shocking report outlining decades of sexual misconduct in the team's front office. Yesterday, the greatest player in Mavs history, Dirk Nowitzki, had a strong reaction to the report.
It's very disappointing. It's heartbreaking. I'm glad it's all coming out. I was disgusted when I read the article, obviously, as everybody was. I was shocked about some of the stuff, and so just really disappointed that our franchise, that my franchise, that stuff like that was going on.
The Mavericks will abide by whatever recommendations are made. I can tell you that when it comes to anything involving the Mavericks, Mark Cuban is a strong believer in extreme ownership, extreme accountability, and he is highly motivated to get this resolved in an expeditious but thorough fashion, and no steps will be skipped here with this.
All right, Cowherd, the Mavericks are conducting an internal investigation, which the NBA says they will monitor. But does Adam Silver and the NBA need to have their own investigation?
Yeah, I think it runs a decade long. I think Mark Cuban's a distracted owner. I think it would send a league-wide message. Listen, the NFL went out with Deflategate and Ezekiel Elliott, and they have created investigations. And those are Cowboys, Tom Brady, Patriots. I think it sends a league-wide message. The world's changed. The Mavericks are losing, Jason. Stories come out during losing streaks. What if there's multiple winning teams and you have ugly cultures of harassment? I think you send a league-wide message, and you make it very clear it can't be tolerated, and we're going all in on this.
Yeah, I think they set a standard that they're going to try to avoid, but they need to live up to with the way they handled the Donald Sterling situation. And so how can you, once you've set that standard and precedent, how can you avoid it here? To allow Mark Cuban to pay for, finance his own internal investigation seems laughable to me. And I've been someone who has always been a little bit skeptical of the pedestal we've put Adam Silver on. Oh, the players all love him and he stands for all the right things. Well, now there's a time to make some tough decisions and really go at something serious. And let's see if he can meet Roger Goodell's standard, because everybody in the media loves to beat up Roger Goodell. He can do no wrong. He can do no right. Well, let's see what Adam Silver does here. I certainly think they need their own investigation and not look the other way on this situation. It's great that, this extreme ownership that Rick Carlisle is talking about. Really? The guy's claiming he didn't know what was going on. And again, I'll say it again, a women's running club in Dallas knew about the CEO and the president, but Mark Cuban didn't. This sounds like something. Mark Cuban doesn't deserve to have oversight of this situation.
This is why I say that, for me, the NBA has to do something. And I got a quote that I wanted to pull up that kind of signifies to me what I'm talking about. And what I want to really look at is the bottom part of this, is that when he talked about what he missed, that he also talked about, I didn't do anything. This person can go out there and do damage on another woman at another time, okay? Or do I say, can I get him counseling, okay? So when he's talking about the firing of Earl Snead, he did his research back then. He did his time back then, and he still came up with this decision to keep him on staff. That's what bothers me. So when you say now that, I messed up and I overlooked, I didn't look at the police. No, because you spent time right there to analyze and conceptualize, okay, here's a man, let me see if I can give him a chance if he goes out and does this other stuff. That's what bothers me. So as it moves forward to what happened when the allegations finally came out, it's hard for you to retract and say you didn't know. Because you're on Shark Tank always criticizing or really digging into company, people that want to come in about company. About you got to know your company. You got to know how to run it. You heard Rick Carlisle talking about hands-on. Mark Cuban is always there. Nothing gets by him. So you can't say you didn't know. I'm going to go back to that quote right there. The NBA does need to do an investigation because he spent time on this right here and he let it slide.
Yeah, we know he lying. First off, he knew everything about it. And that quote was perfect, a perfect example of why the NBA needs to do its own investigation. He was able to do it, see that somebody was in trouble, send them back into the workforce, but then at the same time say, yeah, I don't want him to go somewhere else, but I want him to come back in my business and do the same and have a same opportunity to do the same thing, which that doesn't make sense to me at all. It's just the league is not as harsh as the Donald Sterling. I wouldn't go that far because this is something that that's what Mark Cuban did, was turn a blind eye to Earl Snead. But it wasn't his actual act, like it was Donald Sterling's actual act, his voice that they heard on the phone.
But he allowed stuff to go on. That's my issue, is that he allowed Earl Snead to still be there despite what HR put together. Then you go fire Buddy Pittman, who was head of HR. You go fire him after you gave him the okay to keep him.
Yeah, that's the blind eye I'm talking about that he turned it. But at the same, go ahead.
It's one of these things. I never let a smart person get conveniently dumb. I didn't know this was happening. So Mark Cuban's detail-oriented. Now he's conveniently sloppy. Well, you know, I didn't give it thorough. I only had lunch with the president. No. You're hands-on guy.
Exactly.
You can't get conveniently inattentive. You're a pay attention to everything guy.
Listen, his excuse doesn't fly. If I'm Adam Silver, if I'm the other NBA owners, if I'm the media that allegedly is hyper-vigilant about these situations, but that hyper-vigilance seems to be disappearing when it's Mark Cuban, the standard, he can't just say, the fact that he said, I didn't know anything about it, that right there is the number one reason you need to investigate. Is the guy really this incompetent? And again, his excuse that he's throwing up that I didn't know, that's the number one reason why I would be out there investigating.
Snead, the reporter, who had multiple domestic abuse allegations. Right. It appears that Cuban allowed him to come back knowing we just can't have him in the same room with women.
Right. Now that's crazy.
I mean, I'm sorry, but like that, in what decade of my life has that been appropriate?
And the NBA definitely does need to do an investigation because I think this is the tip of the iceberg. I think it goes so deep, so much deeper than just these little incidences right here and what we know about ussery. I think that it's very important that they get to the bottom of this. And it does. Dallas Mavericks don't need to be involved. The NBA needs to involve some form of independent investigation.
You can't have 20 years of this stuff going on and it just be one or two people involved.
I agree. All right, well, some people are drawing parallels between the Mavs and the Donald Sterling scandal. Back then, Cuban was a vocal opponent of the idea of forcing Sterling to sell the team, saying, quote, what Donald said was wrong. It was abhorrent. There's no place for racism in the NBA, any business I'm associated with, and I don't want to be associated with people who have that position. But at the same time, that's a decision I make. I think you got to be very, very careful when you start making blanket statements about what people say and think as opposed to what they do. It's a very, very slippery slope. Whitlock, should Mark Cuban suffer the same fate as Sterling, have to sell his team?
And this is where Eddie and I disagree. I think this situation here is worse than the Donald Sterling situation. Donald Sterling is a blithering idiot, filled with bigoted views. Those were expressed in private with his mistress or whatever. In terms of empowering Doc Rivers, empowering Elgin Baylor, paying a team of mostly African-American players, you could put together an argument that Sterling's views, his private views, weren't impacting his actual workplace. When I look at this Mark Cuban situation, and particularly the Earl Snead situation, how is this not analogous to what we fry college coaches for? You got some five-star recruit, and you look the other way because winning was more important, and so you overlooked his sexual assault or domestic violence issues and kept him around. Mark Cuban did exactly that as it relates to Earl Snead, signs a contract or has Snead, his organization has Snead sign a contract that I won't have interactions with women one-on-one. If a college coach had a contract with a player, you'll have no contact with females on this campus, the media's head would explode and would be calling for this man to be eviscerated from the planet. So how can we not hold Cuban to that standard?
I think, first of all, GMs, coaches, players, refs make mistakes, and so do commissioners. David Stern once introduced a new ball and didn't tell the players. Owners can make mistakes too. Okay, nobody's perfect. When the Sterling thing came out, Darnold had a 30-year reputation, even in the housing market in Los Angeles, of oppressive ownership and
Housing discrimination.
yes, housing discrimination. Okay, Mark Cuban, for at least the first part of his ownership, was considered a strong steward of the league. He was very pro-player. First got to go private jets.
Fined more than any owner in any sport
he was
in
loud.
the history.
He was loud. Jerry Jones is loud, but he's a good owner. Jerry's a good owner. He can be loud.
He's been fined more than any owner in the history. Again, fined for tanking here recently. Fined for calling into question the integrity of the referees. At war with the commissioner, David Stern, the entire time he's owned this team.
I think what's happened with Cuban, Sterling had a 30-year poor reputation. I was not even an NBA beat reporter, and I'd heard horrible stories. Cuban, I think after his title, became an incredibly distracted owner and has become now a bad owner. But I don't feel it's systematic 30 years. I think it's Shark Tank, 30 new businesses, not paying attention.
20 years of Terdim Ursary.
But here's my thing. I don't care. Think about it from the victim's perspective. It doesn't matter if it's 20 years, 1 year, 5 months, 2 days. It should have been taken care of. So even though Sterling built up this track record of over 20 years, 30 years, whatever, and I knew when I was in the league about Sterling and what you heard about his racism. Mark Cuban had a chance back then to quell this and stop it, but he allowed it to go on. Now, my thing is, once they do a thorough investigation, we get all the facts on everything, then let's determine what the penalty is as far as, does Mark have to sell the team? Let's not make a judgment right now based off what little we know.
Want due process.
I want due process and get all the information so that way now we can really evaluate, or the NBA or independent investigator can really evaluate what the penalty should be. Don't jump to conclusions because it doesn't look good right now. But I still don't think you can dismiss because Sterling had 30 and Mark might have had 7 or 8. It's still bad optics because he had a chance at the time to kind of push Earl Snead out the way, but he allowed him to stay.
And that's the mistake I think Colin was talking about. A owner, a GM, they can make a mistake, but was this a mistake that he continuously made? Now, we know what Donald Sterling does. I have personal experience. I was with the Clippers 03, 04. Now, let me tell you, we didn't have a practice facility. We practiced at Southwest. We're a league team. Southwest Junior College, right? Yep. We have no showers, so we come to practice clean, get dirty, and got to put on some clean drawers on a dirty butt. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying? Then on top.
Let me stop you there just for a second, Eddie. Just because I don't want people to think you're analogizing putting on dirty shorts to what women face.
No, I'm not at all. What I'm saying, I'm talking about the racism of Donald Sterling, his track record, not only from the top and not only that phone call, he had been doing this to his players, is what I'm trying to say. He's treating us. We have no food after practice or before practice. We have no food on the plate. No, I'm not trying to sound like a spoiled athlete or anything. I'm just saying that you can see
you were treated well.
We were not treated well at all. That was.
My position is, though, again, those things are difficult, but they pale in comparison.
No doubt.
Into coming into a hostile work environment where the CEO is sitting down talking about you're going to get gangbanged this weekend.
And I was not comparing this to that right there. I was just giving you an example of my experience of the Donald Sterling side of it. That's another compartment that nobody else knew about. So I'm giving you guys an example of that. Now, as far as what he might have made, he could have made a mistake, and this could be something that he's been covering up. And that's why, again, I agree with Jimmy. You got to do your due diligence and see what really is going on.
Mark Cuban has been the most accessible owner in the history of sports. You can send him an email and get a response within an hour. People in the media, Earl Snead got his job from emailing Donald Sterling. It's hard for me to believe with this Mark Cuban, with Ursary running around doing what he was doing, that not one woman within that organization no one emailed Mark Cuban. No one put it on his radar that things were out of control in this workplace. It's hard for me to believe that.
And if they didn't, is that telling you they didn't feel comfortable with Mark Cuban because Mark Cuban created the culture?
But they couldn't because they went through HR and got basically pushed to the side. That's what happened. They went to, and a lot of times in the workplace for women, and I've talked to a lot of women too that feel they have no voice. And this is what bothers me from that perspective. So as a parent, you tell your child, if you got a problem, you come to me, I'm gonna take care of it, okay? You come or go seek authority and make sure you tell the right people so they can take care of it. So we tell women to do that, and they go to HR, and the head of the head doesn't do anything about it. What are they supposed to do?
Right. Then they tend not to
now
come
they
back.
talking about, now I'm gonna lose my job. I'm gonna lose my career.
That's why we have whistleblower laws for employees that feel they have nowhere to go.
Right.
Could I make this argument though? With Sterling, he was directly speaking. He was directly involved in the controversy. With Cuban, he's indirectly involved.
Earl Snead is involved with Earl Snead directly.
When he gave him that
he
job
got him the job.
Yep.
He was in the loop when he got in trouble. The man got arrested at their practice facility.
How you not know that? If you get arrested here, I'm gonna know. And I'm not even the boss.
And it
okay?
involved
and I'm gonna know the details of it.
It involved a female employee in your company. Again, this is your point about he's overseen a culture that is that toxic that the women feel like they had no place to go. I'm just sorry. This, to me, is worse than Donald Sterling. Donald Sterling can think I know a lot of people that think a lot of dumb, racist stuff. People in my family, I've thought some dumb stuff. I know a lot of people privately that say a lot of dumb things. I don't know a lot of people that would oversee this work environment, would take this Earl Snead and make him sign a contract, don't interact with women. I don't know a lot of people that would do that. I really don't.
And nobody should come to work and be uncomfortable.
Oh, God, no.
This is the Speak for Yourself podcast, and I'm Jason Whitlock. Before the show moves along, I wanted to tell you today's show is brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings. It's that time again, that familiar crossroads of choosing between basketball and hockey. You can't choose, they're both on. Why are they both on? Relax, we have a solution. Buffalo Wild Wings. Rather than fill your living room with TVs, coming to B-dubs, we've got hockey and basketball on, each playing on dozens of screens so that you don't have to choose. And to complete the trifecta, we can ensure you have access to all the sports, foods you crave. From our selection of America's favorite wings and any of our 21 signature sauces and seasonings to shareable favorites like cheddar cheese curds and fried pickles, you'll have everything you've ever wanted. But wait! We also have a variety of beers to quench your thirst. All the basketball, all the hockey, all the food, and the beer you want. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Please drink responsibly. Now back to the show.
Welcome back. Jim Jackson, Eddie House are here. Good first segment. Let's return to the NBA where the second half of the season gets underway tonight with the Warriors looking to straighten things out after going a very un-Warriors-like 4-4 coming into the All-Star break and complaining they were fatigued. Meanwhile, LeBron, oh boy, Whitlock, and your Cavs, with all these bit parts, are on a hot streak, 3-0 since making a flurry of moves at the trade deadline. Whitlock, who's going to have a better second half? Warriors or the land?
Cavaliers.
Oh, come on.
Cavaliers. Listen, man, and listen, I go to these extremes with LeBron. When LeBron is happy and engaged, he's the greatest force perhaps in the history of sports. And again, he doesn't stay in these zones as long as I would like him to be. But I think he's surrounded with the ideal personnel. No one's going to threaten his authority over the team. He's got guys that can hit open shots that he's going to create for him. I would not be shocked, and I'm prepared to be embarrassed even tonight when they play the Wizards. I would not be shocked if they swept through the second half of the season.
Oh, come on.
I love swept through. I love this LeBron James. I love the personnel he's surrounded by.
Okay.
They will have a great second half of the season.
First of all, they got the Lakers' fourth and fifth best players and the Utah Jazz's third best players.
They got LeBron. Continue.
Okay, let's just temper it. These are spare tires from a flat tire. You're happy to be getting down the road. Here's the other thing. Golden State under Steve Kerr, this is the third straight year, or fourth straight year. Yeah. They've had the best second half record. They tighten the screws. This is what they do. Steve tends to be a little ethereal. He talks about politics. He lets his guys coach. And then Steve, because he's been on a great team. He was with MJ, the Rock Tour. He tightens it up. Then about March, April, they're ready to roll. Golden State's going to be a force the next 30 games.
Eddie, I think I want to shift the question. Maybe instead of who will have a better second half, who is it more important to? You know, and that's
funny. I got that written.
See, that's what I'm saying. See, that's why we played together. We played well.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we fed off each other. You see, I got you. Get to the wing over there.
I could have never seen that. That was way out.
I'm telling you, but here's the thing. It's more important for the Cavaliers to figure out an identity of who they're going to be. Okay, going through the Eastern Conference. Okay, and also identifying which role it's going to be going into the playoffs, because this year, the Wizards, you just don't know where they're at. Milwaukee can be a threat because they're long, they're athletic, and they can guard. Toronto they still have something to prove. So I think it's very important that we look at the Cavaliers. Okay, what is my rotations going to be? Can I play big? Can I play small? How do we communicate on the court? All those things are critical, I think, in the second half of the season, these last 24 games for Cleveland to figure out.
You agree with me?
I didn't say they're going to sweep through it.
No,
okay, but I agree with and about Steve Kerr. Think about this. He played for Lenny Wilkins. He played for Pop. He played for Phil Jackson, okay? He understands when to turn it on and when to turn it. So he has a mixture of a lot of these different coaches, and he understands what buttons to push, but he allows his players, Eddie, I think you know this, he allows his players to have the freedom and control because he trusts them. And again, when you play against Golden State, you're playing against, and people don't underestimate this, 5 to 9 guys with high IQs. So you don't lose a lot when you go to your bench.
Well, for me, it's a little flipped. I think the Cavs will have a better second half for this reason. How bad was their first half? You know, they only could get better. They got all these new pieces. They're going to look better. When you watch the Cavs play, they're going to look faster. They're going to look more engaged. Their defense is going to be better. Yeah. So that's going to have them having a better second half than the Warriors. But to me, it is more important to the Warriors this second half because they have slipped defensively this year. And their bench isn't as good as it used to be. So to me, it's more important in these last 24 games for them to make sure that they get their defense back on point, because I think they're 18th right now, get their defense back on point and make sure that the bench players are comfortable, because you can't lead heavy on them top guys all throughout the whole playoff series.
Because y'all are missing the key element here in terms of what LeBron James' ultimate goal is, to catch Michael Jordan.
Well, he ain't never doing that.
I'm telling you, LeBron believes this, and he's right to believe this. If he beats this Golden State team, he's got a hell of a case for it. Taking out the 73-win Golden State Warriors when everybody gave up on him and he became that monster after getting down, and I told everybody, don't poke the bear, and the next thing you know, LeBron took him out. He has a chance if he takes out the Kevin Durant, Golden State Warriors. That's his. I dropped the mic and said, did Mike do this? 73 win. One of the great teams of all time with these 4 superstars, and I took him out. Did Mike ever do that?
Okay, but you're
he
forgetting
set the record and won the championship. He had the record before the 72, right?
Okay, you're forgetting in a
month.
month.
Won it.
Yeah.
In a month, Cleveland's going to have another headache. Kevin Love comes back. So what happens for a month if they're rolling? And now I've got a guy that wants 17 shots a game.
I don't think Kevin will be a headache because he's going to feel re-energized too by what they have, and his role I think is going to expand in regards to his importance to be that pick and roll, that pick and pop guy. He's going to be the guy that if they need a bucket on the post, they can put in there. If they need a guy to spread the court, even when they go small and match up, I think him watching from the sideline gives him a different perspective. And I do believe this. LeBron is no dummy. He knows how important Kevin Love is to the Cavs if they ultimately want to beat Golden State.
Yeah, Kevin Love, again, he's not a guy that, ruffles the feathers. You know what I mean? He comes in, even because he was the best player all year this year, the second best player for them this year. And people were shooting at him, and he kind of just stayed calm, didn't say anything. So I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to come in and want, I need my shots back. He's going to work himself back in, and I think LeBron understands that. I think his teammates understand that. I think the coaching staff understands that.
You get very emotional. You're really on this thing
It's
now.
not an emotional thing. it's LeBron's resume, he's been at this for 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
When the guy is smiling and happy, the sky's the limit.
Well, to keep your phone on tonight. When they trail by 13 in the third.
The Wizards ain't got a chance. That's a 15-point game. If you didn't pay for Valentine's with my last Cavaliers pick, pay for it tonight. All right, welcome back. Jim Jackson is back. We're joined now by Fox NFL analyst Mark Schlereth. Let's move to the NFL and Lamar Jackson, who's become something of a lightning rod since former general manager Bill Polian suggested the Heisman winner move from quarterback to wide receiver for the NFL draft. Polian's comments have caused some pushback, and now a blogger at a website called Sports Not is actually suggesting Jackson should skip the 40 at the NFL Combine, writing, quote, Jackson should refuse to run as a means to send a message to NFL clubs that they need to value him as a passer rather than a guy who can blaze up the track. Cowherd, should Lamar Jackson really consider skipping the 40?
That's idiotic. It's a talent show. Go show your talent. If you can run a 4.3, you just go run it. Because, by the way, that won't necessarily make a GM go, all right, you're a receiver. That's going to make at least a handful of GMs go, listen, man, the Wildcat has worked for a while. We got read option stuff. I mean, I think if you run an all-time 40, somebody's going to say he's too good an athlete not to have on my roster.
What I would like to say to Lamar Jackson, if he's watching or someone knows him, could pass this advice on to turn off the internet, turn off TV. You're about to hear so much dumb advice from people that want to make a name for themselves, want to make this a racial issue. Just block it all out. Surround yourself with football people, because there's going to be a lot of non-football people with a lot of bad advice that will end up costing you money. You don't want to go into the NFL with some chip on your shoulder that you're somehow a victim of a system that can't stand you, because that's just not the case. There's too much money to be made in the NFL for a coach or a general manager to sit around and say, you know, I'm going to screw over this black dude. Trust me, their wives want them employed and collecting that money. Whoever can help them win in whatever position, that's what they're about. Please, Lamar, don't listen to the idiots. The idiots talk Colin Kaepernick out of about $10 to $15 million this year. Go talk. You don't want to end up that guy.
Bill Polian is a friend, and he is a great evaluator, 6-time Executive of the Year in the National Football League. He's put together a bunch of Super Bowl teams. He happens to have a great eye for talent. And the other thing that he understands, probably better than anybody else, is you have to understand the way the league is structured. And here's how the league is structured. We don't care to develop anybody because we are not fully invested. In the last collective bargaining agreement, they agreed to a rookie wage scale. So you draft a kid, you draft him late in the first round, 25th overall, go to Paxton Lynch in Denver. Paxton Lynch is throwaway right now for the Denver Broncos. They've moved on. After 2 seasons, they have moved on. Why? Because they've invested $9 million. You know where they got it? From the couch cushions in the front office. Oh, here's $9 million. Boom. That's it. It's done. So if you don't have an investment, what Bill Polian is saying is, listen, young man, you've got such a skill set. You could make millions upon millions upon millions, but you are behind the 8 ball because you come from a university that has spread offense, that you're not developed into an NFL quarterback right now. You've got supreme gifts, God-given gifts to play whatever you want to play. Your best chance to make it in this league and to make it long-term in this league and to develop in this league is to play a different position. So he's giving him sound advice, saying this is the way a lot of evaluators are going to look at you, and if you want to make this a big-time career worth millions upon millions of dollars, your best avenue is to go this direction.
Well, I'm going to look at it like Terrell Pryor. From perspective of he had size, he had the arm, but they thought about him in a different light when he came to the NFL in regards to an NFL-type quarterback. Now you look at him longevity-wise, what he's able to do as a receiver. Now he's extended his career. I'm going to go back to your point, too, Jason. It's all about who you surround yourself with. If you're going to hire agents to represent you, that you trust, that's who you need to listen to. You need to embody that and say, okay, this is our goal, this is our path, this is what we're hearing. Right. This is what I suggest you do. Because if I'm going to pay you to be my representative, I'm going to trust that you're going to lead me in the right direction, not only for the short term in my career. I'm not looking at these first few years after my rookie contract, but how can I extend my playing career 10, 15 years?
Right.
And I got to do that by trusting who I have.
Bill Polian was saying, hey, Terrell Pryor, if you would have gone from day one as a receiver, like many people had said you should,
You'd have been
your
far
second
above,
contract,
right?
your second contract, you'd have gotten paid.
I bet you Julian Edelman will make more money than Terrell Pryor. Julian Edelman was a quarterback in the Mid-American Conference.
Hines Ward.
He went straight to the receiver position, and I don't know this factually. I guarantee he'll make more money than Terrell Pryor, who started as a receiver late.
Rich McKay, Atlanta Falcons, former Tampa Bay Super Bowl builder, told me one time as he demanded all his scouts, regional, national, give him examples. So if you drafted a player, give me 3 he reminds you of.
Right.
Baker Mayfield is clearly Manziel. You would be doing a disservice to your owner if you said, we're going to draft Baker Mayfield. Okay, here's the downside. He's a lot like Manziel. I can't look at Lamar and not see a little RG3. Art Briles, Bobby Petrino. Brilliant offensive coaches. All their quarterbacks are tremendous. I mean, all those Baylor quarterbacks are great. Tremendously gifted athletes who are pretty thin. RG3 got hurt early. I would owe my owner to say, listen, the prototypes of who Lamar is, one of them's RG3, and he was a huge bust. You'd have to do the same thing with Baker Mayfield if you draft him in Denver.
Better advice is don't throw in the combine. Run. Run your butt off in the combine, but just don't throw it.
And look, a lot of quarterbacks have done that.
Yeah, sure.
All right, to Philadelphia, where the Eagles are fresh off their first Super Bowl, thanks in large part to Nick Foles, who shocked the Patriots and the rest of football. But despite Foles' MVP-winning performance, Coach Doug Peterson says the Eagles still would have won it all without him.
Listen, Carson Wentz was the MVP talk, of the league last year, and I truly believe if he's healthy, and I still feel strongly that we're probably in the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl with Carson Wentz. And he's the MVP. I mean, I just think that's just the way he played last year.
Love Doug Peterson's honesty. Whitlock, you bothered by it?
Look, the question is, should Nick Foles be bothered by it? And I would say no. What he should be is appreciative of the transparency. And because Doug Peterson said, we could have done this without Nick Foles.
Right.
And he's diminishing what Nick Foles accomplished, in my mind.
Is he diminishing it or just being honest?
Well, he's diminishing it and being honest. And he's also saying, I'm the play caller. Colin Cowherd could have been our quarterback, and we still would have won the Super Bowl, and Cowherd would have been MVP. But if I'm Foles, I hear that and say, that's why I need to get the hell up out of here and go play for some place that wants me as their starting quarterback and get this money.
You have been so pro Nick Foles. He's going to be out of the league in a year. He's going to be.
That's why he should get his money now.
Boom.
So I'm Arizona. I go after him, and he wants to be a pastor within a year or two. He's not a long-term solution to anything.
Again, he's a lot better than Blake Bortles and what Denver had, and some teams will take a flyer on him and pay him $15 million for a couple of years. And I think Nick Foles is pretty good and can do it again in the right situation.
Oh, a Super Bowl?
He just did it, Cowherd.
He jumped on an elevator going to the 10th floor on number 9, came out on the 10th floor, saw the view, and you're giving him credit that he got on in the lobby.
I look at what Doug Peterson said, and I agree with him. I think Carson Wentz was amazing.
He was the MVP in the league.
All the way through. 33 touchdowns, I believe 7 interceptions before he got injured.
Should Foles be bothered?
No, I don't think Foles should be bothered. I think it was honest. Now, listen, if you want to try to get out of there, I understand you got to maximize your value when you have that opportunity to maximize your value. I look at that situation, if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, and say, man, we have no idea what Carson Wentz is going to be coming off an ACL. This is an insurance policy, and the only way that we're going to get rid of Nick Foles is if we get a king's ransom for Nick Foles. So, Nick Foles, you better just be really happy. You're in a good spot. And, you better, to me, he's in a great spot. And, if you could get traded, that'd be great. But I just don't know that that's going to happen.
Hey, Colin, have you ever got stuck on the elevator?
Yes.
You had to ring the emergency bell?
Right.
Okay, so your analogy here is, okay, he's on the 9th floor, could have went down, too, could have got stuck. But he was able to play well enough to win the Super Bowl. Everybody get put in that situation, and Mark, you know this, could be in that situation and not perform. For me, the thing I love about Nick Foles is his personality. This guy's been through so much. Okay, so what? Doug Peterson said that. I've been through much worse than this. I was almost out the league. So what? I was able to win the Super Bowl and do what I did best. I don't think this bothers this young man because he has something bigger in mind that he wants to accomplish and do. I think he's very appreciative of the opportunity he's got there, so I don't think it bothers him. For that. Look, his name is in the record books. Right. No matter what happens after this, you can always look back.
One thing, he could have put that position and pooped in his helmet, right?
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of guys would.
I've been on this show for 2 years. There wasn't a day that I ever felt that you cared about Nick Foles. You could be his agent. Like he won the Super Bowl, you've gone crazy.
As he's earned it, Colin.
He's Foles gold.
It's like when Kurt Warner showed up in St. Louis.
You think he's Kurt Warner?
I'm just saying. Kurt Warner was bagging groceries and wasn't even a fault.
You remember when Dick Vermeil starts crying and goes, "We're going to rally around Kurt Warner and we're going to be great." And we're all like sitting there going, "Oh, that's hilarious." Yeah, you are. I never heard of Kurt Warner. He's a Hall of Fame.
Warner is a Hall of Fame talent. Welcome back, Jim Jackson, Eddie House, and all sorts of stories. Let's move to San Antonio, where reportedly Kawhi Leonard, he's hurt, has been cleared to return from the quad injury that's kept him out most of the year, but has elected to remain off the active roster. The handling of the injury has caused some tension between Kawhi and the Spurs, and now Greg Popovich says his best player might not play again this year.
Well, we only have X number of games left in the season, and he's still not ready to go. And if by some chance he is, it's going to be pretty late into the season, and it's going to be a tough decision. How late you bring somebody back. So that's why I'm just trying to be honest and logical. I'll be surprised if he gets back this year.
All right, Jason, who looks worse, Kawhi or Pop?
I'm not sure. I don't want to say anybody looks bad here. I just think a couple of weeks ago, Mike Tyson, a longtime NFL coach, started talking about it's harder to coach now. And that's what I think is happening here. Greg Popovich, for a long time, had David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, guys that he could crack the whip and they would respond. I think in this current iteration of the superstar athlete, it's hard. I think Pop and the organization feel like Kawhi is healthy enough to play. Kawhi doesn't think he's healthy enough to play, and he ain't going to play.
I think Kawhi doesn't look great because the Spurs are a 3 seed without him. And by the way, they don't have a history of having systematic problems. They're pretty buttoned up. Now they've got a real problem. I think Kawhi came into this league pretty unheralded but athletic. And very early on, people were like, he doesn't talk. He's nonverbal, a little different. Now all of a sudden you have a problem on a franchise that doesn't have problems. By the way, they're good without him. He was compared to LeBron, but he's become the anti-LeBron. He doesn't communicate. He doesn't pass. He's hurt regularly. I think he's gone from this next star to an enigma. He feels like an enigma to me.
That's true, but he can play. I'd want him when healthy.
Mm-hmm. Well, between who looks worse, I wouldn't say either one. I'm with you with that, but I have to lean to Kawhi. You know your body, and he went to the medical staff and they cleared him to play. He got hurt again. Then he goes seeks a second opinion, which to me seems like he doesn't trust his medical staff. And about the rehab, he's telling, man, this doesn't feel right when I'm rehabbing. You have to listen to your body. You know this, Jim. Yeah. You must listen to your body, no matter what the training staff tell you. You know when you're ready. So I have to lean towards more listening to what Kawhi is saying because he's up next year. He's paid $19 million this year, and he'll be up next year. He's at the end of his contract. You don't want to come back and have something that you re-aggravate or re-tear or keep tearing up, and next thing you know, you got two more years in the league. Oh, you're Grant Hill, and you had all this potential. You look like you were about to be a superstar, but you can't get off the sideline because you're injured.
And that's why I wanted you to say that, because you're talking about Kawhi not trusting the medical staff. Kawhi going to get a second opinion. Listen, my third year, I was averaging 26 points a game, tore my ankle up, okay, in New Jersey, 51 games ago. Coach Dick Mata wanted me to come back so that my scoring average would qualify that year. But I knew I wasn't ready. I couldn't even jump off. I couldn't even put pressure on my ankle. But he wanted me to come back. They were trying to rush me a little bit more. Our staff was. Now, again, we didn't have the technology and the rehab back in 95, 96 like they do now. But I understand why a player is going to sit back, especially when he came back once and said, okay, you already cleared me to play once. And I went out here and got hurt again.
Right.
Now I'm going to jeopardize that. I can't do it. So, yeah, Pop hasn't dealt with this before. But you know what? Sometimes you have an anomaly that comes along that's a little bit different. You got to adjust to it too. Kawhi has to take care of what he needs to take care of. If he doesn't feel healthy physically, but more importantly mentally, then don't do it because you're going to jeopardize, again, forget the short term. You're going to jeopardize what's going to happen with you moving forward.
Do you think it's physical or mental? Because people do.
Both.
I think
it's both.
I think it could be both, but I think for the most part it has to be physical because you could get over, you know how fast you could get over that mental hump. You know,
by playing. Get out there and play.
Drills, do some things in practice. But the way it seems like they're making Kawhi seem like he's like pretty much quitting on the team. But remember, this was the same guy that everybody was saying, high character.
That's right.
Great integrity. And the thing is, we don't know much about him because he has the same face no matter what. If he's happy, sad, mad, or don't understand, he has the same exact face. And to me, some people might want him to come out and make a statement, but for what? I don't think he has to come out and say anything. I think what he has to do is take care of his body, make sure he gets right, and think about his future. And if it's in San Antonio, then good. And if not, then hey.
But I think he has to figure out how to control the narrative in some aspect because it is his career. Because he hasn't been as vocal. Because we can't read Kawhi. That allows San Antonio to control everything. Okay, they can put, if they want to, you know how it is in the league. If they want to put some things out on you, they can put it out.
Pop's been very pro player.
No, I'm not saying that he will, but again, look at Pop's body language and what he's saying.
Oh, I know.
You don't think he's disappointed?
Oh, you can tell he's totally
so he doesn't necessarily have to say it. I'm a body language person and I read people that way.
He is.
But how he talks about it and his face is down, he's not looking directly in the camera. Oh, he's not happy about it.
You don't think Pop's pro player? He was the first guy to give stars rest.
Well, again, that's a strategy, and that's about having older players. I don't think he's anti-player, but he's an old-school coach, and they will put pressure on you when they think, you're just hurt. You're not injured.
Exactly.
He'll put pressure on him. And Kawhi Leonard saying, no, man, I got $30 million, $100 million on the line. I've seen Grant Hill. I've seen great players before force an injury, and the next thing you know, they never live up to their full potential. I tend to side with Kawhi Leonard. All right, welcome back. Time for last call. Let's move to the NBA, where Adam Silver just floated the idea of reorganizing the playoffs, taking the top 8 teams from the East and West and seeding them 1 to 16, regardless of the conference. Now LeBron James has weighed in on the idea, and it doesn't sound like he's a fan.
It's cool to mess around with an all-star game. You know, we proved that you could do that, but let's not get too crazy about the playoffs. You know, you have Eastern Conference, you have Western Conference, and you have Eastern Conference champions. You have guys that win the championship from the Eastern Conference who wins the big dance, and then sometimes you have them from the West as well.
All right, Cowherd, your thoughts? Silver.
Totally agree. It's a panic move. First of all, you know the problem with the NBA? Golden State's maybe the best team ever, and LeBron's maybe the best player ever, and they're sweeping too many teams. That's not going to change. The bottom line is the last 3 finals have had record numbers. I'm watching all these playoff series.
You know what's great about the NBA?
What?
LeBron's going to sweep the second half of the season. That's what's great.